Thanks for staying with us. Now, Black Tax, an individual and community approach intended to help previously disadvantaged Africans financially sustain themselves, is now proving to be a barrier to advancement for many working Africans. Data confirms a significantly higher proportion of Africa's economically active Black population continue to find themselves in a difficult financial predicament with little chance of accumulating any savings compared with other race groups. The added financial pressure of supporting older family members, such as parents and siblings, as well as one's own children, is a characteristic of today's sandwich generation. Now, a lack of financial education is costing many dearly, particularly as they struggle under the load of Black tax. The issue of Black tax can make it extremely difficult to save compared with those who don't have to shoulder the financial responsibility of taking care of extended family members such as parents, siblings, even grandparents and grandchildren. Unfortunately, there isn't a special retirement savings avenue for people who are more financially burdened than others. So is Black tax a burden, a blessing, or a bittersweet thing for you? Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Okay, so Uti has been in the diaspora before. Let me come to you.
Diaspora people that used to send us money.
Yes, they used to split.
Auntie Uti,
send us money. let me ask you, what's been the most ridiculous demand that you've ever had, if you've ever had it? And
I got a very frantic call one day from a family member to tell me how his friend just made money. I think that was the first time I heard, how did he put it? Was it you don't hammer or something like that? And it was some business. And he said he needed a certain amount of money. And so I said, okay, so tell me about the business. Did you hear me? He has made XYZ amount of money. Wait now. What is the business? He could not answer. How will you run it? He couldn't explain. All he kept saying to me was, there's money in it, there's money in it. Sorry, that's the phrase. There's money in it, there's money in it. How are you going to get the money out? It wasn't connecting. And luckily I didn't have so much of these types of conversations. But I knew I had friends who literally were carrying the weight of their entire families on their backs. And to ask someone, let's go watch a movie, and the person is telling you, I can't spend the £8 circa that it would cost to watch a movie because they are carrying the burden of an entire family, from school fees to food to everything. So one person is sick, everything is literally, they couldn't have found a better phrase than Black tax, because that's what it is. The one the government hasn't taken from you, they're going to correct it. That's all. So it's a tough life for a lot of people. And, so many people, I think I've mentioned it on the show before, where you see people very early in the morning on the bus going to one job or the other. It's just sad to see. But the pressure is very, very real. When you're abroad, people just think you are made of money. And in the UK, £20 is a lot of money.
But Uti, can we be realistic with this conversation? Because I know the sacrifices my mom, for instance, made when her siblings were going to go abroad many, many, many years ago. They are 9 in their family, and I think it's just three of them now that are in Nigeria. The remaining are abroad. I know the sacrifices that she made for some of them, and is it not only fair if you have sacrificed and this person has gone somewhat to like a greener pasture setting, that you also in return, because I think that is the whole logic behind the Black tax, that you are able to also pull other people up, right? So why are we making it look like it is a burden for people to actually demand for some things? Or is it that people are going overboard with their demands? Let me come to Elsie.
It's easy for people to look at it from this angle you've looked at it, especially when they are the ones receiving. You know, I mean, you've sacrificed. What exactly was the sacrifice? You sent your first child to school. When you were bringing this child into Mother Earth, there was no plan to send the child to school. Why did you have to have 10 children without a plan to take care of them? And then your plan for having that 10 children is the first child. I mean, this conversation, when it comes up on social media, it looks like banter. We're joking about it. They'll tell you, whenever you see any firstborn child, pat them at the back. They are doing well. It's not just about UK and US or people in Canada, outside the country. I know, yes, they get those sort of calls because we've got this perception. But once you're in Lagos, you're in Abuja, you're in Port Harcourt. I mean, the story I read...
in the city.
The story I read, which birthed this conversation we're having, had different people from different walks of life and different parts of this country sharing their story. Someone who just started work, barely 2 years, and you're getting a bill of 10 million naira because they heard you moved to Lekki. I mean, is there a tree in this Lekki that people used to go and plug money? Let me understand. So I'm not saying you cannot help when you can, right? I was having this conversation earlier today with someone, and I asked him, I said, what do you think about black tax? Do you think you're going through it? He said he wouldn't say he's going through it because he's not obligated to do whatever he is doing. It is when it becomes an obligation and it is your responsibility, you are a single person because you have been sent to school or you have got an education. It is now your responsibility to ensure that not just the nuclear family, there's an extended family. We had cases of someone who the mother is the one soliciting help in the village for the son to be able to help people. Anybody that comes to her to say, oh, I need something, I call my son. You can see what to do about it. And they do these things not understanding the burden they are heaping on the people involved. I'm not saying don't be nice. I didn't want anybody to take me out of context. Be nice if you can afford it, right? But the burden the families actually attract, beyond even taking care of the family itself. The ones they attract from the extended village members, meeting members, whatever it is, to say, oh, we want to buy this. My son has to make it happen. You now realize that some of these people cannot even tell you what their plan is for retirement. They are just living now and just spending. And when it gets to that point, we now begin to ask her, what did you do with your life?
All the
right? Look at what she said. I'm working and I cannot take myself to the movies. Why? Because what? I was telling you before we came on air, some of these girls we have conversations about and say they are into prostitution and they are on the road. I have had the opportunity, I will call it that, to speak to one of them. And believe you me, she is doing that thing to send her younger ones
to
school. That is part of the black tax we are talking about. So I think for me, it's for people to begin to understand the burden they heap on these people, and also those that think that that is the best way of life, because I don't think we can stop it. It's, how was it called? Brotherhood or burden? Yes, it could be brotherhood to a certain extent, but we also need to begin to move past it to understand that you have to have the amount of children you can take care of. Your retirement plan cannot be your children, because if your retirement plan is your children, it means that your children's retirement plan will be their children, and that circle will continue. So I understand when it is a situation of, oh, you really have to help, but it goes beyond that. You really have to help. It becomes a body. Nobody understands
but don't you think
there can be a no? This
black tax issue, like you're calling it, that is becoming a burden, is a failure from the family home front? Because I'll tell you why. Okay. We are 9 children in my home. Nobody calls anybody for anything. Do you understand? My mother and my father don't call us for nothing. They are still very independent. So it is the mindset that we all grew up with. So don't you think it's also the failure of the home, where it seems like, you know what, and we are, because I remember clearly that for every time you go to Benin, when I was a lot younger for holidays, we would go and spend time with my grandfather. The only thing you hear grown adults talking about is that they wait for my brother may come carry me go. And they wait for this person may come carry me go. That is the language. And
they're not engaging their time.
It's not even, so it's so much of, everybody has been conditioned to think that there's one hero coming there. So don't you think it is deeper than just asking for money? It's more of, you know what, I feel entitled to this person, and I feel like, you know what, I can sit down and do nothing, somebody would help me. So it's a failure from the home front, and it's deeper than just saying, oh, somebody's asking. Because if you have not empowered somebody like me now, no matter how broke I get, I cannot just wake up and say I want to call somebody to say, please, I'm now your responsibility. You have to take care of all my needs. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I can ask you for a loan. I can do all of that, when it's time I pay back. But I'm saying that now you now become like the person becomes your ATM, because that's almost like what is happening now, where you just see any little thing, you want this, you want that, people will just meet you and ask you for it. So I think maybe again there's a bigger issue, which is failure from the home front, that we're not raising children right, we're not raising the family front right. But let me come to Uti, then I'll come back to you, Elsie.
So I think that you even all stayed on the very positive side of it. Elsie started to stray a little bit when she talked about the ladies on the street. But let's look at this. When you were talking, Uwa, all I was thinking in my mind is it's a very slippery slope. I remember when I was younger, one of the things that my mother made very clear to me was that nobody was obligated to do anything for me. The parents who brought you into this world weren't obligated to do anything for you. They should, but you can't have a mindset of expectations. So everybody understands that, you know what, I'm standing on my own 2 feet and I've got to figure it out. But the extreme for me is the negative side of it. It's something that is ingrained in us as Nigerians. I don't want to speak to the larger Black race. But for Nigerians, it's beyond burden. What is the direct consequence of this black tax? You see girls who are selling their bodies, whether it's the ones standing on the roads or is the big
sophisticated ones,
the runs babes, as you want to call them, whether it's the boys who are picking up guns and turning to armed robbery, whether it's the corruption that we're talking about, these things have far-reaching consequences because people in the cities, as Elsie mentioned, are under an immense pressure from family, from expectations. I'll give an example. I had a lady who used to work with me, and she always used to tell me how she couldn't go to school because her family could only afford to send one child. So she stayed, she didn't go past primary 6, so her brother could go to university. In her mind, her brother owed her something. It took me 4 years of conditioning to say, you know what, your brother is living his life. If he doesn't give you anything, if he doesn't do anything for you, your life, the clock is not going to stop ticking on your life till he gives you something. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with your life to make yourself better. So nobody owes you anything, no matter what you think you have done. You have to come to terms with your reality. Because when we put these pressures, I remember a lady that used to work with me. When she came to Lagos as a complete green JJC, don't know nothing. A few years down the line, she was driving a Mercedes. And the person that brought her to Lagos quickly went to the village and called her mother and said, so-and-so's child is doing, I don't know what she's doing. And that person's mother went to the girl's family, to the girl's mother, to say, do you know what your daughter is doing in Lagos? Because I've been told by my child that she's doing this and she's driving a car that we don't know how she can afford it. The girl's mother practically walked this lady out of her house.
Of course.
Because she was benefiting from the money. The black tax was paying her. She didn't care what her daughter was doing. So if her daughter was involved in any kind of illegality, she wasn't interested. As long as the money kept on coming. And these are the same types of people that, to continue to show that her family is doing well, anybody that walks into her living room to complain, she will send them to her daughter and put more pressure on the girl without any inclination to what she's doing. So it's a very slippery slope. Culturally, it is something that we do. But as young people today, let's take away the fact that it's always been happening. How can we stem the tide? Because it will keep happening, by the way. Because people are still having 8 children, 9 children, 10 children, because back in the day, they needed more bodies to farm. Majority of our families are no longer going to the farms. So today, why do you need to have more than 2, 3 children?
Farm is now
Most times, people are
mechanized,
not having kids based on what they can afford. They're having kids. Oh, you want to have a whole football team first? For what?
Even now, that's why you even see a lot of girls trying to have children for supposedly big men, so that child serves as a, what's it called, assurance. The child serves as assurance and retirement.
That one is credit card black tax. That's credit card and the black tax.
Credit card black tax. But you know, I had a friend that while we were in university, 100 level, the father passed in 100 level. And they are like 10 from one father, one mother. 100 level, the father passed. Final year, the mother passed. Final year, he is like midway. So they had 5 younger ones behind him, right? He's midway, has some siblings abroad and all of that. You know, at that point, you know, it's no longer supposed to be a burden. The truth is, you know, and I love every day I see them. I am super happy, and I know their parents are smiling from heaven. Because they came together as a family
To take care of
make sure that every single one of them that you know needed to go to the university finished the university. Do you understand? So I don't know if maybe it's now taking it overboard when you're now beginning to ask me to take care of my village people. But when it is within your family unit, that you know that there is a dire need and somebody needs to step in. You know, because at that point, they needed to step up. So all the older siblings came together and made sure none of their siblings had to drop out of school because the parents were no more. So, I mean, in that instance, it is a blessing that you even have that.
I mean, see, that we have this family culture and being able to take care of each other cannot be mistaken to not be a blessing. But you know how they say it, everything that is overdone will be bad. Too much of everything is bad. So that instance, it is sounding good having 10 children, and finally it is a blessing because their parents were there and they pushed them to a certain level before whatever happened. Just imagine those 10 children, little, and like that. And they now become a burden to someone. That is what happens. So which is why when we're having this conversation, I also encourage family planning. And that's one thing our government would never or have never really sat down to talk about and really do a lot around that area, because the people that are really driving this government are people who believe that you have to have as many children as you have to.
That's on your mouth.
You know,
take a break.
But okay, do you want to take a break now?
Take a break.
All right.
Drink water, please.
Okay, dear.
Drink water. Me, I want to even ask my viewer, what is the most ridiculous demand that somebody has asked you for? You know, when we come back from the break and we open our phone lines, we'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Now, if you're just tuning in, it's our ladies' night out, and we are asking, is black tax a blessing or a burden? So do you live in diaspora? If you do, and okay, again, if you live in the city as well, and you have a story to share of the most ridiculous demand that somebody has made, you know, somebody from the village called you and asked you, you know, just let us know. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Our phone line is open now, please. Remember our rules: when you call, try to keep it within a minute. Turn off the volume of your television set so we can hear you clearly. All right, so Elsie. Okay. You were saying.
So let me. I drank water. I drank water. Taking it back to what you were saying regarding family values and the orientation that we grew up with, I might have to go a little bit personal. Yeah. So I lost my mom at 18, and at that point it was just my mom. My dad had gone way earlier, right? At that point, my mindset as well was to say the family should take care of me, right? The uncles, I mean, I had uncles in the US, in the UK, they're still there, everywhere, right? But it did not go as I expected. And it was a situation of, it is just you now, and what do you want to do with your life? For a period of time, I wallowed in that self-pity and anger of saying, I have these people, and they can't do anything to take care of me. It took me, again, picking myself up to tell myself that my life is my business and I have to do everything within my power to ensure that I get to wherever it is I'm supposed to get to, right? So it meant that my education, my clothing, my feeding, my accommodation, everything was on me, and it meant that I had to do series of jobs. I didn't have the luxury to go to full-time university like my age mates were doing then. I had to do a part-time education because I had to go to school, right? So right now, it doesn't mean that I don't get some ridiculous calls, but when I do what I can do. And it means that you don't even have the right to put a burden on me, because I was never a burden on you. And even when you could do something to alleviate some of my burdens, you did not do anything, right? So it also changed my own perception to understand that, you know what, this life, it is just you and yourself and whatever you can do within your own conscience that can elevate the next person. Because I'm not a fan of just having all the money and keeping it somewhere, because I don't know, like the one that has 1 billion naira cash in the house, what exactly were you hoping to do? And we saw the monies were already spoiling, rotting. It couldn't even be used anymore. And that is money that can actually help someone somewhere and help people be better, right? So the orientation thing keeps going on, that entitlement thing keeps going on, because we also fuel it.
But you didn't feel entitled. Yeah, you wallowed in it
at some point. And if I had people who
would pump you up with that kind of mindset.
So now, what it has done to me is that it's difficult for me to actually ask people for help. I have my friends who tell me, you know what, it's not a bad thing to ask for help. When you need help, ask. And whenever I finally open my mouth to say, I need something, just know that Elsie needs it. Because it is... They say it's pride, but I don't know. I would rather type on the phone, because I know that while I'm typing that in to say, I need 100K, I am crying, because I feel like I shouldn't be in that situation that I want to ask you for anything. I want to be able to get what I want for myself. So the orientation thing will keep growing if we keep feeding it, because there are people who will be watching this thing and say, what is wrong with this one? Why is it because you have everything right? No, I don't have everything right, but I understand that there is dignity in labor. And if you have series of children, this one is not numbers anymore, it's series of children, and you make them understand that if Uncle Toby, that is the first son, does not bring anything to make your life better, then your life will not be better. And before you know it, somebody is going into one baba in the corner to kill Uncle Toby, because Uncle Toby is now too big and he's not bringing out money.
I really love, the fact that you brought it home, you brought it personal, because you see, it's the same issue that I have till today. I might be in really dire need, but I'm not able to ask, right? Because I just feel like, it's my problem. It's nobody's problem. But I don't know. It's a different mindset for people. And hearing you speak, it just brings to mind the influx of beggars on the road that feel entitled. When they come on by your window and they're asking you for money, it's almost like you owe them that money for you to give it to them. And this thing has gone so deep. It's eaten deep into our subconscious that everybody feels like I'm entitled to whatever it is, that you do not have the right to shine just by yourself. I need to have a pinch of that. So that's why somebody will see you and say, anything for me, and all of those kind of things. But let me come to Uti. Uti.
Yeah.
So who are the people bothering you?
For me, this thing it's a vicious cycle. Like you said, people, once you have expectations, that's where the problem lies. You feel that somebody's your auntie, your uncle, your brother, wherever they are. The truth is, you never know people's circumstances. We joke about it, but there are people in this Lagos. Go to schools, and you see parents who are dropping those kids off in G-Wagons, but they haven't paid school fees. You have no clue what anybody is going through. You can't, there's that funny meme on social media that says, look good, problem no, they finish. You don't know what anybody is going through. That one acquired an asset many years ago. You don't know what their financial situation is today. So once you have that expectation that somebody can do A, B, C, D, E for you, it creates a problem, because you are then putting pressure on somebody else without knowing their reality. And this pressure sometimes is not even financial alone. Because when you call someone to say, something just happened, or we need money, if that person doesn't have the money to give you, you've placed the monkey on that person's shoulder. That person is then ridden with guilt. That person is ridden with worry. So there's so many consequences to these things that people are not mindful of how much they can impact a person by just having to have this conversation. Sometimes you're left even now putting down the phone and confronting your reality to say, can you imagine? I don't even have to give. You were in your own
that's a
little corner
situation that
doing
comes up
okay,
a
and somebody
lot.
just comes and puts a cloud over your day. So it's really difficult to think about it, to say, look, as we are in this part of the world where we don't have a welfare system, because again, that's another problem.
That's another problem.
When the poor have nothing, in other countries, there's food stamps, there's welfare, there's tax credits, there's all sorts
It's
of things
education loan.
that provides just the basics for people. There's food, there's shelter, something. Even the homeless on the street can go to a soup kitchen and get some food. So at the end of the day, there is something. But here we don't have any of these institutions. We don't have any of these things. So all we're left with is the one institution that we have, which is the family. So we come back to it. To look at it, even when a person has a bereavement or any kind of celebration, it is ingrained in us to give money. Because that's the welfare system. We give money. You can't tell your colleague somewhere else in the world that somebody died and the expectation is that everybody will do a collection. No.
They'll give you flour.
But here, there's a death in the family. Open account and start collecting money.
Money, simple.
That's what happened.
So we got part of the story that Elsie shared. I have some pictures I'd like to, because they asked the question that what is the most ridiculous thing your family member has ever demanded you to pay for? Someone says, my elder brother, who is married with kids, once asked me to help him with his house rent. Another one says, a friend once asked me to help him send 25K that he needs to buy an original charger for his phone. This one got me like, are you for real? He says, my distant cousin once asked me to send him money to buy textbook for a course when he was in the university. He wanted 50K. And somebody says, my brother told me he was applying for his master's abroad and I would be paying. Can you imagine that? The total money was 10 million naira. Then the final one says, my family wants me to take up the entire family responsibility because I live in Lagos. Then all of them are married and I am the last child.
Wow.
I mean, so these are ridiculous demands. And this is what, these kinds of demands would be the reason why a lot of people will see it more as a burden. Because you see, you can't take away the fact that, some people have been blessed.
Yeah.
Because
like said,
there was somebody,
yes,
there was somebody that just said, you know what, I will hold your hand and walk you through life. Because genuinely, there are people that have fallen short where maybe all of a sudden everything just went south in your career, you lost your job, and there was just that one person that was just there supporting you all through, not making the world see your shame and all of that. You understand? So if we start to see demands like this, right, you make a mess of the blessing that can come out of this black tax. You make a mess of it, where you just think it is okay for you to just open your mouth and say things.
Money for charger.
Like it's the most ridiculous thing ever you would hear. So but if we want to say like we maybe enlighten ourselves more, how would we? Because we can't stop it.
No, we can't.
Right. So what would be the ideal thing to ask for?
Ask for.
Yes, to ask for. You must ask.
Trying to put a cap on it?
Yeah? No.
Are you trying to put a cap on it?
I'm not trying to put a cap on it, but I'm saying that there would always be a reason to ask for help, right? So what would be that genuine reason? That
I don't think asking for help is a bad thing. Ignore the fact that I have my own personal issues of asking, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, like Uti has rightly said, we do not have a lot of institutions here, so it means that we are each other's institution, and we have to be able to come through when we can. However, there has to be a lot of genuineness in that asking.
Thank you.
How would I be asking for things that I know I can't even afford and I do not necessarily need them to survive? Do you understand where I'm coming from? So if you're asking me for an original charger of 25K, how much was your phone? Why my own original charger service is not 25K? Do you understand? So, and those responses were not made up. They were actually from real people. And the only difference is they try to change the name and
names, yes,
location
yeah.
to avoid, people are really skeptical about having this sort of conversation, even people that are going through it, because they don't want to be seen as being hard or not understanding
you're
the harsh
complaining, yeah.
reality. But it is what it is. However, it can be minimized, honestly. I'm not going to put a cap to what you can ask for. I think what I've said covered it in terms of being genuine in what you're asking
your
for,
request, yes.
and also being responsible as well. There are things you don't just ask people for. Should I jump into Ashwebi people when there is an Ashwebi, you're having an Ashwebi of 50,000 naira?
You not ask somebody else.
If I say I'm not paying it, you are saying she's not big enough. Are you okay? Are you paying me salary? Do you know if I make 50K?
No, it's not even that. It's not even
You
for
know?
you, Elsie. Somebody would ask
And
you
they'll
to
be
help
angry
buy.
and actually keep malice on that sort of situation, and I really don't care. When I come and tell you to buy a Shebi, then you can be angry. But not to digress. I think that we should, going forward, as the progressive thinkers that we are, the young generation who are claiming to live better and do better, think about having the number of children. I mean, I've met people who will tell you they don't want to have children. Remember the lady we had on the show who is very adamant about it, and she's saying, I'm not interested in getting married, I'm not interested in having children. And there's nothing wrong in it. I remember the conversation we're having the other day when Uti was talking about how we have made giving birth an issue that you can't even open your mouth in public to say I don't want to have children. They would strangle you, right? So we need to begin to have those sort of conversations and also think about planning. Planning does not necessarily mean that you have to go into the illegalities of abortion or whatever. But I mean, if push comes to shove, you probably get to that point. But when you plan ahead, you know the number of children you want to have. The people that you are sending SMS to every day, how many children do they have? Really? You see someone who has been happy enough to give you 5 children, but you keep texting the person that managed to say, you know what, I want one child, I want 2, and I'm fine, I'm done. But you have the audacity to keep asking.
Someone once told me
that
somebody in the village called him that they wanted to buy a Mercedes car.
For who?
No, I don't want to mention the person, that he wanted a Mercedes car that he has already paid a set amount, that he needed, I can't remember how many million he needed to complete the payment.
Is the person driving a Mercedes?
You don't even get my point. Like, I don't get you. Must you drive the car if you cannot afford it? So, I mean, those are like, that's what, when you're talking about insensitivity, those are like the ridiculous requests that you would hear people would ask.
And you cannot also assume that people have money because they look good.
Yes.
Let's get to that point. Please, can we get there? You can't assume that I have money because I am laughing and I'm wearing clothes.
And the yellowness is yellow.
Do you understand? Please, I need money too if you have to send to me.
Uti, you have a comment?
So I have a comment. And before I read it out, I completely disagree with this comment. But it's from Raphael Akori in Zaria. And he says, in this life, you can never be poor through giving. So giving should be a lifestyle, because we're here to impact lives positively before we check out of this temporal world. Nothing wrong with giving, nothing wrong with charity. But when it becomes a burden on the giver, there's no such thing as saying you can never be poor from giving. I had somebody who went to an event and they were calling for people to come and give money. My mother was at that event. The person sitting next to her said, you're not giving money. And she said, no, that she's not giving. I said, I'll give on your behalf, and filled out the envelope with their card details, and my mom wrote her name and everything. The next day, my mom's name was on a board. What happened? She goes to the desk and they said, the card bounced, it declined. It was an event where everybody had their assigned seat. So she went back to her seat and saw the person the following day and said, you asked me why I wasn't giving. I said I wasn't giving. You gave on my behalf, but you don't have. And he said God will provide. Again, not a bad thing, but come on. So it is possible to put yourself in a detrimental state. That's exactly what we have been talking about when you don't have to give. But I will move on to, Elsie has touched on some of the things that we can do. Really and truly, everybody needs to be realistic about their realities. A lot of the time, we're trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's our culture. We're all trying to look good, be big, be driving the best car. a lot of us are not content with our lives. That's the reality. And that's what our culture has created. Everybody wants to wear Gucci, Prada. I mean, it was when I came to Nigeria, I was like, I've never seen these many designers in one party, but hey, that's what happens here. You know? So we've normalized these things that put unusual pressures on ourselves. So first of all, first things first. Secondly, a lot of us are not financially literate. In terms of actually planning for our future, these were one of the conversations I had. The very first career conversation I had, I think I was about 23 or 24. And the person says, you need to put away XYZ amount of money in your 20s, as in a percentage of your salary in your 20s. And as you get older, you need to put away more and more. So if you were putting away 20% in your 20s, you want to look at 30% in your 30s, 40% in your 40s. A lot of us are employers for those who are lucky to be employed, and you have your, what's it called, your pension plan. Some of us don't even care how much goes in that pension plan. To be fair, a lot of our organizations in Nigeria, we have tweaked the remuneration process so that more money comes into your hand now and less goes, you know,
to the pension plan.
Categorize allowances and salaries and all these things. You need to understand what is happening. How are you planning for the future? What are you doing in investments? Most of the time, we think of things like real estate. We think, oh, you know, one day I'll buy a house. But the reality is tomorrow is starting now. It's here. So you have to start planning. You need to start saving. You need to start investing. All these things that comes down to basic financial literacy, we need to understand it.
Absolutely.
I mean, the economy is what it is. So even people who have, you know, retirement plans and pension plans right now, you're having to look at it because inflation is eating away at it rapidly, which is why sometimes real estate is still a good plan. But we need to think about how we're planning for our futures. We can't think of our future. Our children are not our future in that sense. Yeah.
Because you see, that's another big part where you take your child to the best schools, you train your child, and you expect that the child in return, when you are old, the child becomes your pension plan.
I mean, your child will take care of you.
Definitely.
It is a responsibility. Even the Bible says
it's a blessing for you to do that.
It's a blessing for a child to be able to take care of their parents.
But that should not be the intention for which you are.
And when they are doing it, don't start gathering help from the whole of your friends. Call my son.
Call my son. He's here to help you. Please don't call I don't know why they are calling the WhatsApp number. You can't call the WhatsApp number. I cannot take the call here. You have to call the number that is showing on the screen. But I think we've even run out of time. I just remembered that there was somebody dragging Senator Dino Milai for not completing payment of car. So sometimes it's not all the glitters that have money.
No, people need to understand it. So
the look yesterday.
You said what?
Trending.
You said?
Did you see the video yesterday that was trending of a bank that went and stood in front?
Oh yes, the entire staff of a bank went to an ex-senator's house to go and collect money that the man is owing the bank that he has refused to pay.
You see all these big men, now they get loan passed.
You know?
They get loan passed. Their life is on loan. I'm not even hiding my mouth when I'm saying this one. Call them. Anyone that you say the name is very big now, you are looking up to that person. They are loan.
And just today they convicted Farouk Lawan for 7 years imprisonment.
Wow.
And they say make it return the $500,000 we collect from Femi Otedola. So plenty things are happening. You know, people need to understand that it's not all the time that you see flashy and all of that directly translates that there's money to you understand?
Give, yeah.
So I mean, if we have that understanding and we start to put ourselves in people's shoes, we'd understand that maybe there will be some sense of genuineness, you know, in our request and all of that. There will always be people that will be in need. There will always be the needy amongst us. Even the Bible has said that. You know, the only thing is that when you're asking, let it be that this is genuine. You know, you cannot have a benefactor, for instance, that is helping you through school. And that is when you want to tell you want to buy Brazilian hair as a student. I mean, like, does it make sense? You know, you must set your priorities right and focus on your education. So when you're done with your education and you start to earn your money, you can now use your money. You know, count your money and go and buy whatever it is you need to buy.
I'll tell you, even if you have to go on low cuts.
Yes.
I mean, that's the in fashion.
Yes.
Now. They'll tell you you're bold. So cut the hair
and focus on your education. So when you are done with that, you can now, you know, but don't be a burden, because black tax, I believe, is still a blessing for some families.
Definitely.
It's a blessing. So when we start to have all these burdens, heaping
Attached to it.
unnecessarily attached to that, it becomes a bad thing. The intention for it was actually a good thing, so let us try as much as possible to keep it,
Yeah, we also need to do
good.
better for the next generation.
Absolutely,
Need to do
absolutely. I
better.
think we've had a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Uti. Hello. And Elsie Godwin, we've had a fantastic time. I will run out of time actually. All right, so before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment. Most importantly, we're planning a huge giveaway to say thank you to you for believing in the Waste brand and following the conversation. Do well to follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. Follow us now, right? Like, share, comment, invite your friends, and also tell them to watch us as well. So if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Elsie, help me out.
My mother calls it the black tax because
The
generations who came before you have been pillaged rather than being free to use your skills and education to move forward. You lose everything just trying to bring everyone behind you back up from zero. And that's a quote from Trevor Noah. Yeah.
It is huge in South Africa. You need to go and read about black tax in South Africa. It's really, really.
They have a TV show.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see you guys live tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.